agenda. All right, so we have 2 new board members.
Dun, dun, dun.
Oh, shoot. That is first. Need a motion.
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
A second. Probably moved in second to approve the agenda as presented. Raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimous. Thank you. Now, we'll move on to our 2 new board members.
I, Helen Ransom. Do solemnly swear. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. That I will support the Constitution of the United States. And the Constitution of the State of Missouri. And the Constitution of the State of Missouri. And that I will faithfully. And impartially. Discharge the duties of school director. In and for. District number 4. County of Jackson. State of Missouri. To the best of my ability. According to law. So help me God. Congratulations. Thank you very much for your willingness to serve. Ms. Wright, will you take a seat over there?
Oh, we should get this little pepper things.
Opportunity missed.
Next time. Well, thank you, ladies, for your willingness to join us. And it's going to be a fun ride, especially when I forget to do things in the right order. So I apologize in advance for all of my errors. We will do the best we can. So now that you are here, you are now officially voting members. And so we will continue on our agenda. So the next thing is our consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as presented. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimous. We'll move on to student success. Mr. Rodriguez.
Actually, probably, unless you want me to not talk tonight, but that's fine.
What am I doing? Shoot. See? Okay, it's the new people. It's too much pressure. Action. No, what am I doing? Superintendent's report. I don't know where I am.
That's okay. You can bypass me.
We don't want to hear from you tonight. I'm sorry.
Less times that I need to. talk.
Let's move on. Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our new board members. Thank you very much for being here, being a part of this. A couple different things that I want to go through really quickly. We have different opportunities every single year. Our official September report is due to the state at the end of September. That is our enrollment report. It goes through every piece of data that you would possibly want to know about our student population over the course of the last 5 years. So 6 years. You can actually see all that data in that document. It's in consent, but I did want to talk about it just briefly so you kind of get an understanding of kind of what's going on. Certainly, COVID has been really unique, and if you look at the national trends, overall public school enrollment has dwindled just a little bit. But one of the areas that has seen a dramatic increase in enrollment is homeschool. And sometimes that homeschool is a really legitimate parent who is taking that seriously and wants to really work with their kid individually or their family individually. And sometimes it is simply, I think right now, sometimes fear. I just don't want my kid to go to school, so I'm going to keep them home and I'll make sure that they do something there. So there's a little bit of both of that I think nationally we're seeing. In our district, our enrollment kind of has continued to increase up until about 2 years ago. And so you can kind of see some of that in the data, but we did go down in terms of our enrollment just slightly. But when you look at the beginning of September of 2020, we were at 3713. This year we're at 3659. You go back 2 years ago, we were at 4079. It's very possible that in the future we go right back to 4,000 kids where we have been for a very, very long time over the course of the last probably 15 years. We just don't really know. I can tell you other colleagues of mine in similar urban areas have seen a decrease in their enrollment as well. and some areas that have been seeing a large increase were flat. So I haven't heard really of anybody that's like, yeah, we're still growing. So I think this is just a common thing everywhere, but we'll continue to monitor where we go from here. But I did want to draw that to your attention and make sure that you were aware since it was in consent. Our COVID update, just again, standing thing. I will be just as happy as everyone else on this board when I no longer have to give a COVID update. As of right now, this is still a part of our world. And so I can tell you, at least I will continue to share the positive information that is shared with me every single week on our calls with the health department in terms of those numbers continuing to go down. This is a national trend of any group, especially when we're talking about the variant. Every single area that's seen a variant has seen a very natural, dramatic increase and a dramatic decrease. So we are on that back end right now. This week, we actually finally went under what the CDC considers high transmission. And so we're actually in a very good spot right now. Those are very, very positive things. Jackson County is also right now updating some guidance for us in terms of quarantines and trying to possibly limit that a little bit more. How that looks and what that means for us, we're going to have to dissect it a little bit once they send that to us and update that guidance. So we're trying to see what that looks like whenever the CDC updates their information, Jackson County updates theirs, and then we get a little bit of that. Another thing that you've seen in the news maybe this week is how DESE released, actually the Department of Health and Human Services for the state released some information in terms of a test to stay program. That is another thing that Jackson County was reviewing and was going to send us some information and guidance about whether they were going to also support that initiative or not. Initial indications is that they will support that. That's a very difficult thing for us just in terms of staffing and how we would actually test our students and allow them to stay. As you can imagine, everything's really at a high level in terms of work and everybody's kind of overwhelmed right now. And so trying to figure out a way that we could do that. Is there an outside company that can help us or things like that? But those are all things that we're looking at as we get the updated information from Jackson County Health. The other question that I'm getting right now is just in terms of our masks mandate. I will tell you the same thing I've told some of you individually. Right now, it continues to be a positive thing that the district has a mask mandate in terms of allowing some of our students to stay in school. As long as it's beneficial to us that our students can stay in school more, whether it be because, oh, if you have a mask mandate, then you don't need to quarantine for these reasons, but you do for some others. I'm always going to look and err on that side because I want our kids to be in school. I would love for masks to be something that we just recommend and not mandate, but at the same time, as long as the CDC guidance and our Jackson County Health guidance continue to remain that same, and it's beneficial for our students to remain in school, that's always going to be something that we look at. We're still under a mask mandate right now as a county, so none of all this is kind of null and void anyways, but we also know that that vote will come up again here in a couple of weeks, and then all that conversation will start all over again. So just know I am thinking about those things, and as that guidance updates, I will send you another AU because clearly we will not have a meeting for more weeks than what this update probably will come in. So I'll continue to update you and send you information as it progresses. I can tell you as the numbers have declined, so have our numbers in the district. Every once in a while, we'll have a little bit of a hiccup and something will happen, but for the most part, we have seen a steady decline in our numbers of positive cases within the district. So I sent you some of that information in AU as well, and I'll continue to update you as we go. We did have a PD day on October 1st, a professional development day on that day. We do have a couple coming up as well, but on October 1st, we had a variety of professional development going on in the district. And Dr. King, I don't know if you want to say just a couple things about that day.
Sure. So this was an all districts staff professional development day, and really it was building led, and it was based on their school improvement plans, and it was assisted by the C&I department. But you'll hear later, our professional development from the C&I department is now done in modules and done on kind of on demand. So really the building principals were able to utilize that day to guide from their school improvement plans, and then we just assisted as needed. Very highly, Emily will give you some data, some survey data on it, very highly liked, and the format was greatly appreciated. We'll be using that same format in November.
The next item on there is the Martin City ribbon cutting. So we sent this out to you. I'm going to give a little bit of a caveat to it right now in that we may have to push that back just a little bit. As you know, there are some supply chain issues in our world right now. And so some things that we have been told in terms of furniture that's supposed to be in keeps getting pushed back just a little bit. And so I'll say tentative, but I will say if you have not had an opportunity to go by Martin City and see the front entrance and how we changed the office and those pieces, I encourage you to do so. It has been something that we've heard about for several years and that you were promising that we were going to get done. So I'm extremely proud that we were able to do that. So it looks really, really good and I can't wait for it to be finished when we actually get the furniture in. That's going to happen. So I'll keep you updated though. If we have to delay that, then we'll make sure and give you that information. Marks, we have the Honeywell externship. We sent all that information to you. Pathway to manufacturing in your good news, that is in there as well. And I think we sent you the story. We sent you when it was on the news and on the media. Great media coverage. We posted it on our social media pages as well. Just a great opportunity talking about our partnership with Honeywell, our teachers that went on the externships there this summer. A lot of amazing things that are continuing to push forward our work around pathways. And so we'll continue to highlight those particular pieces. There's one more new piece of information that kind of came in. We have students that are a part of, I've told you before that we have 3 districts, our district, Center, and Hickman Mills, that have partnered together in a lot of different ways to expand our pathway models. And so as we partner together, there's been various opportunities for our students to collaborate as well. One of those ways in the area of STEM was our students in each of the districts came together and created a mural. And that mural was really around the expansion of STEM and how that could come about with diversity in STEM education. So it is actually done. It has actually been put out on the street. It's on Troost, and it is actually going to be dedicated. See the thing here, but
November 11th.
November 11th. It will actually be dedicated on November 11th. So we will send that out to you, but that came across yesterday or today. But it's November 11th at 4 o'clock is when that will be formally dedicated, and we'll send you the address to that as well. But this, I tweeted it out at some point in time, but it has been done and completed. And again, our students were part of the design for this project. So again, the 3 district collaboration, it's just a really cool thing for our students to be a part of. 4 priorities update, several things in there that, again, I won't read all of them to you, but we definitely, it seems like a lifetime ago now, but we did have the GEF 5K. I think I talked about that a little bit before then, and I was able to participate in that. We had about 100 runners sign up for that. I think there were 4 people or 5 people that beat me. So one of them was a student, and he was over at our Ozanam campus, and that kid flew. He was fast. So I didn't feel bad at all because he's a lot younger than me. But it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. We raised some good money for our foundation. So we were really happy about that piece. I'll talk about it a little bit more next month, but I was able to have a really good conversation with some student groups today around culture and around the way that our school district interacts with them and what their experience has been in our schools. A lot of different ways, but it was an amazing experience. First of all, I love talking to kids anyways. But anytime that you get an opportunity to get a room about 30 kids together and talk to them, especially high school students, it doesn't take long for them to be open and honest with you. And then we kind of start going off in a lot of different directions, but a number of things that they want to change about our schools. But it's fun. It's a lot of great conversation, and I'll bring some of that information back to you. And it's also going to feed some of our professional development with some of our staff as well around cultural competency. All right, there's a lot more stuff going on, a lot of stuff in your good news, but please make sure that you look at that because there's some amazing things that are going on in our district. We got a lot of challenges, but I'm telling you, there's a lot of really good stuff. That's all I got.
Thank you. And I'd like to officially request that next year there be some sort of t-shirt contest because I'm pretty sure I won this year with my t-shirt.
I'll make a
I think
note of
so.
Pretty sure.
I think you absolutely would have won.
Just saying. All right. Thank you for that information. Any questions for Dr. Rodriguez? All right, perfect. We'll move on. Audience participation. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to an agenda item tonight? Alex is golden. Nothing. We will move on to action. I was trying to go earlier. Sorry.
You're just ahead of yourself.
I mean, I was just ready to go. All right, student success, Dr. Rodriguez.
So I'm really excited again about what we have on the agenda tonight, especially with 2 new board members. So I will tell you, we will at times say acronyms and things that we apologize for in advance, and we will try to make sure that we explain those things ahead of time. But every single year we bring to the board and we make the principals go through this process of presenting what's going on in their buildings and what their plan is to be able to improve academic success and a variety of other things within their buildings. This year, I'm really excited about how that process has played out, especially leading up to this year, I should say, and a lot of work being done over the last 2 years with our C&I department leading up to this. So I will stop talking before I say something that Dr. King is going to try to say for us. So I will turn over to Dr. King.
Okay, all right, so just a quick review. I did send in the board item a quick understanding of the science of improvement and how the school improvement plans, or SIPs, are done. And I just want to talk a little bit about just a quick review before the 3 building principals get up and do present their school improvement plans. I want to talk a little bit about the science of improvement. The science of improvement actually originated in the health field, and it was based on innovation and rapid cycle. Like, we would decide what needs to be improved, and we would rapidly test it. And we would test it in a small area to see if it works, and if it works, we would scale it up. That system worked very well in the health field. Education was slow to finally get on board with it. But education finally does get on board with something, which not a lot of people still are, but once it finally understood, that could work in the school improvement plan. And that's what we've applied here in Grandview. So basically it is, we start by identifying a clear aim of where we want to go to improve. And we have to do this by using data and then applying the skills of improvement, of improvement and methods of it that we know work. We have to think of the changes and how we want to make changes over a small period of time that we can scale up to make a large period. And we start with small testing, and then how do we broaden and keep improving. And it is this rapid cycle of plan, do, review, plan, do, and review. It goes in 30 days. So everything is done in a 30-day cycle. And if you remember, if those of you that were at the workshop, we actually went through what this plan would be if we were trying to lose weight. We choose something, we work on it for 30 days. If that doesn't work, we choose something. We continually go back to whether a root cause analysis is to look at how we can improve. So for the science of improvement, I asked all buildings to answer 3 questions. What are we trying to accomplish? How will we know if the change was an improvement? Because we can work at something all year and it doesn't improve a thing. And then what changes can we result? How will we know these changes resulted in improvement, and what changes will we do long term? How do we scale it up? We start small, how do we keep scaling? So the 3 principals here that are going to present their school improvement plans. What you have to understand is these school improvement plans were not originated by them alone. They have building improvement plan teams, or BLTs, that work in collaboration with this process. And they meet once a week, and they go through a lot of data. They go through a lot of discussion about what do we need to do to improve, and how are we going to know that we improved, and then what are we going to do for 30 days, and how are we going to measure it. The key is the evidence. So I do want you to listen to what they're doing to make the change happen, but it's more important if you listen to what is the process of improvement they are going through. What are they describing as they present to you that you can realize is this process, this continual process of improvement that they are applying to making their school better, and how are they building capacity with those teachers on their school improvement plan, on their BLTs, but really how does the BLT then translate it small to big? How do we scale it to all teachers? And that's kind of a quick little overview, but I really am excited for them to present. And they are excited to do so and answer any questions that you have. I'm going to have Belvedere go first. So Samantha Dane is actually the second year principal at Belvedere. She is not new to Grandview. She's been a teacher and an instructional coach here, her second year in Belvedere.
It is the second year in Belvedere, but we're going to call it my first year in administration. Last year was kind of a wash. So good evening, everyone. I feel a little odd standing here like this, so I apologize if I have to turn sideways to you. This year at Belvedere, you can move on to the next screen there. So we started with my leadership team looking at the root causes and really what's going on in our school and why are we not at the level that we need to be. So we looked at data from previous years. We looked at data for discipline. We looked at data for achievement. We looked at data in parent surveys, in student surveys. And then we developed the fishbone diagram that I know some of you went through with Dr. King before, really to find out not just what's the, when you think of a problem, you think, oh, well, that's happening because of this. And well, why is that happening? Oh, because of that. Well, why is that happening? Because of this. And we dive down into the root cause of the problem. And then we work through all those whys until we find the one that we think, okay, if we fix this, we're going to see some of that gain, some of that improvement that we're looking for. So that's where we started. Part of our data that we looked at, the next slide, please. There you go. Part of the data we looked at was our iReady reading and math scores. The data that you see here is our current fall assessment. And when you look at it, you can see that we have 19% of our students that are reading on or above grade level. That's a total of 57 students out of all of them that are reading on or above grade level. And then go on to the math one. For our math one, we only have 10% of our students, or a total of 28, that are on or above grade level for math. And what we can't do is make excuses and say, oh, well, this is happening because of this or because we have a pandemic. What we have to do is look at this data and really have an eye of here's where we are and now how do we move forward? Because we can't afford to not move forward. And if we just make a school improvement plan and we put it on the shelf somewhere and we say, oh yeah, we might try some of those things, we're never going to get the movement that we need. So we identified some problems of practice that we really want to work on this year. And that included the students not being engaged in their learning, lacking the ownership of their learning, the low student achievement that I just showed you, and the lack of parent involvement. And so in these three problems of practice, we then develop plans for each one. So our first goal is to improve, obviously, the teaching and learning and achievement of the student. And the idea behind this, we have a lot of students that are below grade level, sometimes several years below. If you look at all of the research-based, the research out there, an effective instructor can move a student a year and a half in 1 year. So our goal, that are below grade level. So our goal in our reading classes is to move those students a year and a half. So you think, well, how do you do that? So we go back to our root cause diagram. Why are they not growing the way they should? So what we identified is goal setting with our students. The goal setting has a high effect size in order for the students to take ownership of their learning. And we're not talking about goal setting of, oh, hey, I want to be a better reader. We're talking about goals that have action steps, that have evaluation, that have reflection, that are actually owned by the student and they're tracking their own learning. So in our first 30 days, we introduced this idea to the entire staff. And then we kind of developed the why. Why are we doing this goal setting? And then we had and this is kind of on a later screen, but I'm going to talk about it now. Our idea with the instructional, I call it the instructional leadership team because I have other committees that deal with some of the other parts of it. So this is my instructional leadership team. So with the instructional leadership team, we dove in. We were going to do the whole staff at once. And that was the initial plan, like, oh, everyone's going to goal set. And then we realized, like Dr. King said, if we tried it all once and we just pushed it out there, and then we went through this whole process and it didn't work, we just wasted a semester trying to do this without it working. So we pulled it back and said, we're gonna start with the leadership team, those teachers that are there, and we're gonna dive in. So they dove in that first 30 days and we did some reflections, we collected some data, and actually it's been amazing. The teachers that have done it, the students are, coming back and asking for more goals when they finish their first one. They literally asked me not to go into a classroom because they're like, Miss Dane, we need you to wait to come in because we've got to finish our action step. They're practicing their sight words, so they're diving into this learning. And all of the teachers, the leadership team kind of started at different places. Some of them started academics, some of them started behavior, some of them just let the kids. One of my first grade teachers decided to just let the kids choose a goal, and they were choosing, I'm going to go down the big slide, and they were so excited because they made that goal. And the whole point was them taking the ownership. So when we saw that, we said, okay, which is it's successful. Now let's roll it out. So we're pushing it out further. And my leadership team is developing a professional development that we're actually going to do on November 1st for the whole staff so that they can start diving in and getting more kids involved in this. So our second goal is the social emotional side of the students, and really that ownership, back to the school ownership and owning their behavior, owning the school itself. And so we put in some opportunities for them to not only learn how to regulate their behavior with SEL, social emotional lessons, but also how to be a part of the school through clubs, which have happened in the past but have dropped off, mostly due to the pandemic. We want to get that involved again. And then we now have student-led, we thought, okay, we're gonna have the students in front of students because we want them to see that they're leading it. So now we have announcements aren't just over the intercom, they're videos. So the kids can see other kids being a part of it and building that community. And then in our next 60 days, we've had our 4th and 5th grade students, they've learned the overall expectations and they're building videos. The whole point of this and the whole thought process behind this is to get them leading each other into the place that we want them to be, social and emotional, and owning the school. And we've actually seen some with that. We've had 4th and 5th graders that have, I don't want to say redirect, that's the wrong word, guided some of the younger students and, hey, let's do this over here because we're not doing that. And we've had the SL lessons. They have been the same lessons for the week for every single classroom. So we've been able to do celebrations, and everyone knows we're all working on being respectful, or we're all working on having a growth mindset. So then it builds a building conversation there. I go really fast, I'll slow down. Goal number 3 is partnering with parents and the greater community in a meaningful way. We're all aware that we can't do this without the parents and without a meaningful partnership. And the teams that I work with, our biggest thing is to not just partner with the parent to have them come in for an event, but to partner with a parent in a way that moves the student achievement. And so that's our goal this year. And I will say we sent out a parent survey that some of you received because you're part of my building. And we got back some interesting information about when parents wanted to be involved, how parents wanted to be involved. And we were able to take that survey and analyze it to move forward in our 60-day plan and announce some opportunities to be involved in ways that they said they wanted to. We also, Belvedere had a PTA at one point, and for various reasons, it was dissolved. And then last year, trying to put it back together was very tough because of the pandemic. But this year, we have some parents who are very dedicated. They've already got a chartership in the works. And so we're going to have that PTA build up as well and have that put together and kind of rethinking the way that we're connecting with parents, not only, like I said, and then coming in, but educating the parents and the teacher on how to work together and getting some of that development on both sides and what can we do for the students to partner. So there were some adjustments in the process. And the first one I talked about was the major rollback of the goal setting. We were like, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, no, let's wait and see if it works. We know it works. Well, we don't know. We see good things about it. So we're going to roll it out further. And we've also had an adjustment to a mindset on what it means to connect with a parent. The survey that we sent out really opened the team's eyes on not just what it means, but what does it mean to a parent to connect with the school. And I think that was a big twist for us. And then the other adjustment was this process that we're going through. We started the process last year, but again, with that crazy year, we didn't really dive in. So now for us to go through this process, we're so closely watching not just what we're doing and what we're saying we're doing, but is it working? That it has, it's kind of scary to think that, if we weren't watching it this closely, we might have got a whole semester trying to do this, not realizing it didn't work. But because we're watching it so close, we can turn that course quickly. And then of course we have our weekly meetings with the leadership team. And I have in my building, not just the instructional leadership, but every single teacher is on a different committee, which isn't unusual, but the committees are all designed to do the same process for our student goals and our parent goals, so that we've got the entire building involved in the school improvement process. So every staff member is aware of what we're doing to move forward and aware of how this process works. That was really fast. What questions can I answer for you?
Thank you. What questions do we have?
You said you were closely monitoring. You talked so fast, I didn't.
I know, and it's it's my growth. One of my areas of growth there.
I'm quite familiar with you, so. You said you were closely monitoring success. So, how are you monitoring for change and what evidence are you looking for to?
So
determine
in our different goals, we're looking for different pieces of evidence. So in our student learning goal, the evidence that we were looking for was that student ownership of the goals, because remember, we started small. So we were looking for, does the student care about the goal? Is the goal working? Do we have success when they make a goal? Are they actually making it to their goals? And when we saw that those answers were yes, then we said, okay, now we're going to move it forward to the greater staff. And so when we move it forward to the greater staff, then our thought is, again, is school-wide, are we owning these goals? Are we moving forward? And when we do, we have an iReady diagnostic coming up in November and then another one in December from there. And we're going to be looking at those like, okay, great, now we're making goals. Are those goals translating into higher academic achievement as we move forward? So those are the kind of the checklist for those, the first goal we have. For the second one, the student goal, we're looking at right now, we have about 12% of our students that are not able to self-regulate on a daily basis and be able to be in the classroom for the full day. So as we move through this process, we're literally looking for that number. Is that number going down? Are those students in class more? And we're focusing on those discipline numbers. And so some of the things we've done with these SEL lessons are we're watching each week, we go through it. And the first 1 week was a growth mindset. And so then we've given the kid, I don't want to say a quiz, that's not the right word, but it was a survey of sorts, you know, what was their thought process at the beginning of the week and at the end of the week. And it's just a really short, quick look and say, did this week of SEL lessons make any difference at all? And so we're looking at that data as we move forward to see that it did or didn't. And we've had a couple of weeks where like, okay, that one wasn't a good. So the SEL lessons are developed. We're writing them each week as we go. It's not like we bought a program or, you know, this is developed by the staff. And so we've had a couple of weeks where like, okay, well that week there was no effect, right? So we have to redo it. And we've had some weeks where it's been, oh, that worked really well. So let's keep that one. And then in our parent one, obviously our goal is to get the parents in there and get them involved. And I think the fact that we've had some parents come in and we're starting that PTA, I mean, that gives us some evidence of success. We don't have much more on that one now, but I'll get back to you.
Good. Looking forward to that.
I'll come to present again in the spring. I want to tell you how we've been doing.
What other questions do we have? I just have additional. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, just on the student ownership, you know, how large was the pool of students that you selected? And was that from K to, you know, how far did you go up?
I'm sorry, can you clarify
For
what
the
part of
student
this?
ownership, sounds like you got some kids together and you were trying some things out. So I'm just curious. on
Yeah,
how
so
large
the
was
student
pool?
ownership had several different pieces. So we started out with the club part. We have 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in our clubs. And then they were developing the pieces to work with the younger students. And so part of the ownership, we're trying to develop the leaders of the older students in order to help the younger students see what they should be doing and have them be the role models. Excuse me, other than the goal setting, which definitely just the ownership that we have in the K1-2 area. We don't have the clubs in that area, but the videos and the things that the 4th and 5th grade have been making, they have been presenting as students to the younger students. And they've been partnering with them as far as what the expectations are and helping them understand them. And we have some big buddy, little buddy things happening. So we have some students that are in 4th and 5th grade that have some hard times with their behaviors. And so what we do is as they are able to regulate themselves, we partner them with some younger students so that they can then be that role model for them. And then for the SEL lessons, I mean, that goes, you know, K5 all the way up. We do it with every single grade level. I don't know if that answered your question.
No, it did. I mean,
Okay.
so those 3rd and 4th graders who participate in that, and once they kind of put that plan together and you want them to demonstrate that, and you kind of, you know, you have select students that you're also targeting for the younger piece to view that, or is it given to everyone to kind of view, you know, their output?
The videos and things that they've made so far,
Yes.
that's been viewed by all of the kids. So they haven't had, you know, select people, like that was all of them. We do have select K-2 students that we're partnering with some of the older students to be those buddies. So we're not doing the buddy system because of COVID and we don't have whole classes coming with whole classes right now. But we do have some students that are showing growth in the older grades as far as behavior, and we're partnering them with some of the kids in the lower grades that are struggling with some of those behaviors. Because the idea is that we want them to see that with the older students, we want them to see that you know, that learning matters. It has an effect on someone. They can be a leader. And so we're helping them move forward in that way. And then the younger ones are partnering, saying, oh, I see they had a hard time with this too, but they're able to regulate it. And we've had a couple of the fourth graders that we've brought down to one of the students in second grade and partnered with them. And they teach them, they go down and they say, okay, when I did this, this is what I did. And I breathe like this. And so the kids learning some of the breathing techniques from the students as opposed to from the staff. I mean, we're coaching, but what it does is it gives the students an ownership of, this is my school. These are our kids. We're all in this together. And, you know, the older ones are going to teach the younger ones, and the younger ones are going to learn from the older ones.
My question was just, so these are school goals, right? So I guess how are you individualizing? I see your data points for math and reading, right? So how are you individualizing this plan, like for individual students? Like you could be at any level, right? You could be 2 grades behind, you could be you could be reading two grade levels ahead. I'm kind of getting to the minutia here, but how are you individualizing those for the particular students?
From a teacher perspective or a student perspective?
Yeah, both.
Okay, so from a teacher perspective, with these reading goals, each teacher has made an individualized reading plan for every single student, knowing where they are at the beginning of the year, knowing where they need to be at the end of the year to grow that year and a half with their goal setting for every single month. And then so what they do is as they're working with them in their literacy blocks, they're working with running records and things like that to see where they are. Setting those goals with the students and working with them. And then each month we meet all about these students individually and check in with each individual student, not in with the student, check with the teacher about the students, and then dive in, because if Kara is at a level A and we need her to be at a level F and she was supposed to be at a B by October and she's not, then we want to dive right in quickly and say, okay, why is Kara not at a B? What other interventions does she need? And the reason we're doing that monthly instead of waiting, we have what's called a BAS test, which is a one-on-one reading test that we do every year with the students in the fall, the winter, and the spring. And when we do that, and if we wait for that one test to see where their reading level is, we've waited a whole semester. So now we're diving in every single month to do that. And for the student level, that's where our goal setting comes in. That's where, we're saying, okay, if this is where we want you to be. Do you want to be there too? Oh, yes, I do. Okay. So to get there, that's a big goal. So to get there, we've got to do this mini goal. You got to know your sight words to be able to read. So that, oh yeah, that's going to be my goal. So we're going to learn all first quarter or whatever it is.
So follow-up question to that. So you said the teacher makes the goal. So is the student included?
I'm sorry, I'm just.
No, you're
The
good.
teacher doesn't make the goal for the student necessarily.
Okay.
So what we're starting with goal setting, and I'm not saying that this isn't going to morph and change as we move forward, but what we're starting with goal setting is that we want to give the kids the ownership. So the teachers are talking to the kids. The leadership team is the only one that's done this yet. The teachers are talking to the kids and saying, what kind of goal do you want to have? And some of the teachers have set academic goals, like the reading goals, and some of them have set, behavior goals, that kind of thing. It just depends on what the teacher has done. The idea, the big end game, is that the teachers are setting goals with the students. The students are choosing the goal, but you don't know what you don't know. So once a kid chooses a goal of, I want to be at a level L in reading, then the teacher's going to be like, okay, to get there, here's our proficiency scale, which we've developed as a district. And we can use those proficiency scales to show the kid, this is all the steps you have to take to get to that goal. Okay, well, I don't know how to do that. Great, that's going to be our goal. So what action steps are we going to do to get to that goal? Because you can't just say, I want to learn all my first quarter sight words without any action steps. All right, well, I'm going to practice twice a week during morning work, and I'm going to read with my mom every night. Great, action steps. And then we check in weekly. How you doing on your goal? How's it going? Check and see if they know those sight words. I know it's a really simplistic example, but
You're
that's
good.
what we're doing.
So what is the parent involvement here? Is there parent communication, collaboration? I mean, it takes a village, right? So how does that process
Yes.
work?
So the ideal, what we're working for the parent involvement, is that once those kids have set those goals and they've set the action steps, to communicate that with you. Because a lot of times the action steps include doing things at home with the parents because they can't get it all done in the school day. So then the communication goes home and they say, okay, so, Stacy set this goal and she's going to try this every single night. And sometimes the teachers are having the parents sign off that they've done the action step. Sometimes it's, the kids coming up and saying, Mom, I got to do this. And so that's the communication piece, so that you know what their action steps are and what their goal is. And I'm not saying that's 100% in Belvedere by any means, but that's where we're going.
Just curious, because my kiddo is in your school.
I know, and Mr.
So-
Green's is as well. So.
Sure, I appreciate it. Thank you.
So you have to let me know if you feel more about it.
Right.
You say this is rolling out in November, so the goal setting just started with the teachers, but now you're gonna.
So we started the goal setting with the leadership team only, which is 5 teachers in the building. and they started goal setting with their students. And so on November 1st, the rest of the staff will get more PD on it. Although, I mean, they knew it was coming, so it wasn't like it's a surprise. They'll get more PD on it, and then they're going to dive into it, because this whole goal setting is not new, but this way of goal setting is new, not new, but different for them, doing action steps and evaluation. So they're going to dive into it, probably with 2 or 3 students, trying it out, getting the feel for it. And when I say diving, we're not diving in for months, we're diving in for a couple of weeks. We're feeling it out. And once we feel it out, we get some reflection, some coaching, collaboration with our teammates, then we're going to expand it. Just like King said, we start small. How does this work? And we expand. We start small. How does this work? And we expand.
What has been your biggest challenge in implementing what do you see as your biggest challenge in implementing your school improvement plan?
My biggest challenge in implementing the school improvement plan? Everything. No, I mean, really, for this year, my biggest challenge of the 3 goals, my biggest challenge probably is the parent connection challenge, because of the barriers we have in place with COVID that we have, and the understanding of what a parent connection can be that we have among the staff, which is something we're working on this year. Any other questions?
No, I like the idea. I'm just curious about how it scales in a time frame. So that's.
Which one, the goal setting?
Well, yeah, for the goal setting,
Mhm.
given we're going to start in November and it's still only going to be a small select students, and you're going to trot it out till it
So,
scales.
The leadership, let's think about the leadership team starting there. They started mid-September with just a couple of students. They did a couple of weeks, came back, we did reflections, all of that. And then they scaled it out to their classrooms right after. So they have full class sizes at this point doing goal setting. Up through October, they've developed a professional development for the teachers. So for those of you that have students in Belvedere, you should be hearing your students talking about goal setting sometime in December. Like if they're not talking to it about then we need to go back and reflect and figure out, why is this not working? I keep pointing up there because my presentation wasn't there, but it's not there. We need to go back and reflect and figure out, that's part of the process. When you do those 30, 60, 90, 30, 60, 90, is you go and you try, you're like, okay, we're going to try this. And then you come back and reflect, did this work? And if the answer is no, we didn't get the action we wanted, okay, what do we need to change? And if the answer is yes, well, how do we make it bigger? And then we do it every single time.
Thank you so much. You are speaking my language, and you started off by, we don't know where we need to go if we don't know where we are. I don't know how many times you guys have heard me say that in this room. So speaking my love language there. So thank you for that. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ms. Rainey.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And next up, we have Ms. Kelly Nash, and she is the building principal at Butcher Green, and this is her 3rd year in Butcher Green.
Find my presentation spot, so I apologize to the doctors back here. We're going to get the backside. Well, good evening. I am Kelly Nash, and I'm the very, very proud principal of Butcher Green Elementary. And this is my 3rd year, and I will tell you that this process of school improvement has been one of the most exciting and unusual processes I've been involved with. I've been doing school improvement plans for many years and have done in many different ways. This has been, and this isn't cool educator speak, but the coolest ever because of where we're going. When we were looking at what's the state of Butcher Green, like where are we right now? What's our brutal reality? We drilled down to, we have low parental involvement. We didn't have the best relationships with kids, and we knew that our student achievement was low. That was our brutal reality. And how we got there. Sorry, I'm going to make a lot of eye contact with the big boss.
You're good, I got you.
I know. I'm like, oh. How we got there is we did a root cause analysis looking at a whole lot of things because we had to get the state of the state. And we looked at things that we addressed last year. We did a Disrupting Poverty, the book study with Parrott and Budge. And that brought up a lot of conversations, hard conversations that continued on to this year, where we needed to address our mindsets and our mind maps, what we thought we knew and understood about kids, but what we were living out. We addressed our expectations
what we thought about our parents in poverty, our kids in poverty. Then we also assessed our resources. We assessed our clarity, our instructional clarity, content clarity, and we consulted our data sources. I would bring your attention to this. I'm going to show you 4 data points using our iReady data. This is spring 2021, and we ended the year, I'm just going to look at proficiency right now, at 38% proficiency. That was at the end of the year based on their mastery of the standards of their current grade level. The next is our fall, and you'll notice that, and remember that this is based on, they're being assessed on the standards that they will encounter this year. And what it shows is that 14% of Butcher Green students have proficiency of the grade level standards for the year that they're in. And that gives us some good data. We have an idea where they ended the year in reading. We know where they are in terms of their grade level mastery right now. Looking at math, we ended last year at 29% proficiency. And for this year, it's showing 5% proficiency. So it shows that a little over a quarter of our students were proficient at the end of last year. Absolutely not where we want to be. It also gives us good information about where they are right now in terms of the grade level standards that they have mastery of. And so what that has brought us to is our broad goals. And we have honed them down so that hopefully at night, when we're thinking deep thoughts, we know that we're working to increase student achievement. We want to improve relationships, and we want to improve community. And our goals for that takes you into our SIP goals. The first one is our academic goal, and we're focused right now on literacy. We've got a goal to take our Butcher Green kids from the 38% that they ended last year to 65% this year at the final benchmark, and then next year, 85%. So those are our benchmarks. And when we put together our goals and we put together our action steps, we looked at what do we need to do to equip our teachers, equip our school resources, and equip our kids with. And we determined that whole group professional development, small group professional development, experiential professional development, and then eventually one-to-one job embedded supportive coaching would be the method that we would take to work on building teachers' clarity, their understanding of their standards, the understanding of just great instruction and content mastery. What we've seen so far in our outcomes, in our walkthroughs, we're seeing, well, first, I would say that we've had some smashing success with, and I'm not just saying that because I was part of it, but our feedback was really positive that our professional development at the beginning of the year and what we've continued to chain through the year has been well received. And we're seeing the evidence of that in our walkthroughs, where I can see that the components of balanced literacy are in place and in use. I can see my students involved in those and beginning to work independently in the things that they should be doing. And I would say that my staff now has more clarity on literacy because of the focus. I'm going to come back to that literacy thing in a minute, because in the process of all of this, we had a major aha and did a recalibration, just like Ms. Dane was talking to you about. My second goal, that's the relationship goal. We knew that our kids have been through a lot in the last year and a half. The adults have been through a lot in the last year and a half, that we would have work to do on reestablishing expectations, reestablishing relationships, and ensuring that there was a supportive environment in the school to receive the kids back and get them recalibrated to doing school that is more normal after a year and a half of not normal. And so that looked like more professional development, a lot of intentional work in the first weeks of school to teach those procedures and expectations, but also build relationships, positive phone calls home, working to find out what the kids, what they are interested in. And just our goal is that every single student at Butcher Green feels like they're a part of our school community. and that there's at least one adult in the school that knows them deeply and loves them well. And we're seeing evidence in that. I wish you could see, one of my indicators is every morning I'm out either with the buses or the car riders because I want to see the kids' eyes. Right now I can't see their faces, but I can see their eyes, and everybody can smile through their eyes. My first impressions of Butcher Green 3 years ago, I didn't see as much of that. The kids come off the buses and they come into school with smiles in their eyes. And then they go down and have breakfast and their teachers work through relationship building. And it's been amazing. I have 0 behavioral support needs in the morning. And I think that's because of those relationships. Because of our focus on other social emotional, we're seeing kids being willing to partner with us to process. And that's a trust thing, that they've learned the procedures and the components, and they're willing to take the step out and let us help them work through their problems. And for being in this point, as we're working through everything that we are as a society, our kids are needing help with regulation, but they're also needing help with comfort and support. And we feel like we're working to we want to smash this goal. Our third goal is our community goal. We know that we struggle with parent engagement. We know that the pandemic did not help that. We also have a growing, wonderful issue, factual thing for Butcher Green. We have a growing Latino population. We're at, as of today, 25% Latino. 1 in 4 children at Butcher Green are Latino. And the majority of those children have Spanish-speaking families at home. And we recognized that there were barriers to student engagement for Spanish-speaking families. And we brainstormed how could we bring the barriers down so that they could engage in school. As you know, thinking as a parent, what nightmare would it be to send your child to school and not be able to communicate in the language? And so we surveyed our parents. We found this really cool app that I don't understand the science of, but it just works like a miracle, where parents, they can text us in their native language. We can text them back in ours. I understand them, they understand us, and miracles happen. And the result of that is we have increasing participation on that app, and we're looking to roll that out to the entire school. And part of the community building is we decided that we were going to be brave and have a barbecue and be cool like all the other schools. And so we had a beginning of the year barbecue, and we had it out by the new playground. And I will tell you, about 375 people say thank you for the most amazing playground ever created on the planet in the time. We had the best barbecue, but that was a huge community builder. That takes us to 2 artifacts of our journey. And it's where I want to highlight where in the beginning, this was June of this past year, and we had taken all of our data sources, we'd taken all that good stuff, and what we were doing is creating what we felt would be our primary goals. And we honed down the work of that fishbone diagram to parent partnership, tiered instruction, and database decision-making, all that goal-setting stuff that Ms. Dang answered your question so beautifully on.
You get your chance. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
But hers is so beautiful. It was a work of art. But I would draw your attention to that tiered instruction. Based on what we knew then, we were convinced that to support the student success team process and work our kids through intervention, we needed to focus on helping our teachers know and understand tiered instruction and support them to getting there. And then we really looked at those data sources. We really looked at what our kids needed to have in life. And do the next one. We made some adjustments. We recognized that there was nothing wrong with that goal of tiered instruction. And that's a one-day step. What we realized is what Butcher Green kids needed and what the staff needed based on this process that we visit every single week. I live and breathe the SIP plan. Like I think I know it better than my marriage license at this point, because I'm in there tinkering around all the time. My leadership team is in there tinkering around all the time. And what is so cool and what makes me so excited about it, after having done a jillion SIP plans, is that through this process of working and reworking, we identified that it needed to be literacy. That needed to be our focus, because literacy, the ability to read, is the foundation of every other content. And if you're going to be able to be a person to access this world, you have to be able to read. So we know we have many other things to work through, and we will, but we know it has to start with literacy. So what's really exciting to add on to that, if you can't tell, I'm kind of geeked out a bit. Our professional development has moved the staff along quickly enough that we've had a chance to accelerate what we expected to be a later action step of one-on-one coaching. And now we have job embedded coaching that we're in the infancy of. It's kind of a scary thing to have people come in and coach you, but we're babying them along, getting them to come out on a limb with us of trust. So we see great things happening with that. And now I would ask you, what questions do you have for me?
Thank you. All right, what questions do we have?
I have one. So your second goal about creating those connected and engaged and positive relationships. You mentioned you greeting kids as they get off the bus or come out of their cars, and the great relationship building that's happening at breakfast. What's happening the rest of the day? It's good that your morning's off to a great start, but how are those connections with staff and students being built later in the day?
I have a great example of something that happened today. I saw my counselor peeking around a wall, and I wondered what in the world she was doing. I had the chance to, I peeked around with her because I was curious, and I had a first grade teacher standing there with a young boy who was just, the backstory is he might have taken one of Miss Moore's rings and given it to a friend who gave it to the girl that really doesn't like him at all. They're first grade. So, you know, we don't have drama or romance, but apparently we did today. Well, Miss Moore, in processing with him, I watched her stand with him and hold him accountable and just reiterate to him, honesty, I'm with you. I saw her stay in relationship with this young man through this problem as he was denied, didn't do it. And then he said, I did it, I did all of it. And he leaned on her and she hugged him. And I think that's one of the best examples of staying in a relationship. It's easy to have a relationship when you're having a Pop-Tart. It's harder to have a relationship when the moment is hard. And I see these things happening over and over, because I will tell you, 3 years ago, I don't believe that something like that would have happened. This was a school that struggled to stay in partnership when kids struggle. And right now, with kids coming back into the school setting, and they're struggling so hard to regain social skills, their hands are on each other all the time. The opportunity is given to them by the minute to do something that's not okay. But what they need is an adult to stand with them as they work through the problem and not go, you know what, I'm out. So that's what I would say to that. It was precious. I might have taken a picture just for myself. They're so sweet. Who's next?
You said you make sure that every child has an adult that they can trust and process with. So I'm kind of curious, I'm always curious about this. What is the plan for when that adult is not present? Like they're out for the day?
This is going to sound really cheesy and sound like a gimme answer. But my counselor, my behavior interventionist, Dorothy Gaddy, and I, we want to be those people. There's always someone to tag in. Like if a kiddo needs someone to support them, one of us is always there. There's always a fail safe. And one of my favorite moments is when I had a kiddo struggle with, she wasn't having a problem on the bus, but the bus was having a problem. And she came and found me. Like if your trusted adult isn't there and you come to find me, that's a great day. So we try to build really good relationships across the building with lots of different people, so that even if your person isn't there, another person is there for you.
I know there are some kids who could just fall apart if they're.
Absolutely. And it's a really important thing if someone's absent and we have a kiddo that's really working to acquire skills and they're not okay when their rock isn't there. We make plans for them so that they'll be successful, so that we don't set them up to have a hard day. Try to be very mindful of each kid and what they need.
Thank you for sharing your fishbone, and, because that's what I wanted to see, the down and dirty work.
I'm telling you. And we thought that, oh my gosh, we had delivered the most golden, perfect piece of thing that we were going to like stun the world with our school improvement. And then we're like, oh, we're off base. Oops. But I love that we have that, because I feel really proud of the team that we realized that we were off base and course corrected. And if we didn't have this particular SIP process, I don't believe we would have found that. I think we would have stayed convinced, going not a wrong way, but not the most effective way. Because we want to get that 65% this year in the worst way, and then get that 85%. Because I really want to be able to come to you and show you what Butcher Green is capable of, because I strongly believe they're absolutely capable of that.
So normally I wait to the end, but you just teed me up. So
Yeah.
65
Yes,
and
ma'am.
85. So
Mhm.
I'm a numbers person. And so I like to kind of understand where that comes from. So how did you settle on 65 and 85? And what challenges do you foresee there being to meet those goals?
Going back to the fishbone and the driver diagram conversation, we, as a leadership team, we had a conversation about what are we going to set as our ultimate goal. 100% is our ultimate goal, but what is our goal? And we settled on 85%. And then we had the conversation of, is that reasonable in a year? And so we had to talk about what is reasonable. And at that point, fifth grade hadn't done I-ready, and we were sitting at 45% proficiency, and then things happened. But we looked at that 45% and thought 20% more, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. And so we landed on the middle of that with 65%, because we felt like if we could move what had been then 45, now 38, if we can move from 38 to 65 in a year, that's achievable. And hold that. Like Dr. Harris said, don't screw it up. Hold that 65 and then make it to 85. That's how we believe we can do that. The obstacles are going to be, we know we will always have to plan for intervention for kids that move in that need high intervention support. We can always anticipate the change of staff and then bringing them up to where they need to be, where the rest of us are. What was the second part of your question? Was it
Challenges to getting there.
I think the challenges there's lots of them. Like legitimately, there are lots of them, because I'm mindful every single day, just like the little guy I saw today, each one of them are coming in with a story, and some of them will break your heart. But we learned in our Disrupting Poverty study that we've got to have those high expectations. And even if the story's really, really hard, we've got to have those high expectations. So we anticipate we will continue to have kids come in that have had trauma. We will continue to have kids come in that are living in a shelter. We're going to have those things, but unlike maybe our mindset in the past of, well, maybe that's kind of what they're capable of, or, look, this is what's happening. So, this is okay. We're still going to have that high bar and work through the obstacles, because we have that bar for them. Because we know, I've been waiting for you to ask, what about math? What are you going to do about math? Because you saw that fall in percentage.
It's always a problem.
Absolutely. But we feel so convinced that literacy is a civil right, and that we have to get them to reading proficiency, which will help math and other content areas. We have to get them proficient in literacy, because that's the foundation of everything.
And it's okay if you don't know the answer to this, but
Absolutely.
since you've been there, do you know what the highest level of proficient you've had in your school has been?
It was last May, 2 days before the end of the benchmarking period, when we hit 45%.
Okay, that was the highest.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that recalibrated down. And if you go back about 4 years, I think the ending proficiency was around 42. So that has gone down, and then the pandemic didn't help.
Sure.
But what we saw last year is that through a pandemic, totally focusing on the social emotional needs of kids and getting really intentional about our planning and our collaboration and our PLCs, we saw that our kids held, because really we put out our data and they were holding those games through the pandemic. Like our kids can, what I think last year proved to us is Butcher Green kids can learn, they will learn, and Butcher Green staff are capable. And I think we've learned together that we've got what it takes to get them to 65 and then 85. And this process is what has helped convince us of that, because we can see the changes really in the immediate, where before we had to wait until, oh, made it that far, but we were shooting for that far.
Thank you. Sorry, didn't mean to jump in, but she mentioned it, so it was right there for me. Okay.
I have a question. So Ms. Dane too, you guys are working on low achievements in certain areas. I guess my question to you is, do you feel like as a leader of your building, do you have the tools in your toolbox that available to you that you need to meet these goals, whether it be resources, coaching from your leadership, software applications, things of that nature? Do you feel like you have those currently to be successful?
I will tell you, this is going to sound like the worst brown noser moment that's ever happened. And I am so sorry, because that is so not me.
Oh, she's in your glasses.
Right, she's like, what's she going to say? I have been surrounded. I've got, not that any of the previous Butcher Green staff were not great, well intended and did great things. Sometimes you get magic. And I have a new instructional coach, and I get to house our lead reading interventionist, and I have a new reading interventionist. And there is magic happening, because I can't be the expert in everything literacy, but Dr. King has put someone who is. And then her working with this instructional coach, who is the first one to say to teachers, I don't know everything, but I'm going to learn it. And they have this knack of being loving demanders. So I feel like I am well equipped with my background in literacy, my background in school improvement, but I've now been surrounded by experts, very specific experts that can help move this work along so that I can work as a leader, making sure we're going the right direction. So I feel like I have the resources. I know I have the support. And there are people now that are working directly with Butcher Green staff in ways that this was not a school receptive to coaching. They were not receptive to new ideas. And now there's one-on-one coaching going on with people that I never would have thought would let a coach cross their door. It's amazing.
I should have asked you the same question. You're off the hook.
I bet you just said it. I'm happy to answer. If you would like to find me funds to get me, more staff, so I can have some one-on-one with all the kids, I'll take it.
Well, see, it's one thing, right, to have goals, but when you don't have a
Right.
team or you don't have the
Absolutely.
resources,
No,
right?
we
it's
really
something
do. We have we have the reading interventionist in our school as well, and we've got a coach, and we have our behavior interventionist that's there as well. So we're starting to build that team up as far as surrounding the kids on all sides with the interventions that they need in order to be able to succeed.
We've been given some amazing supports from our district leaders. Having a behavior interventionist on site for when kids are dysregulated and they need someone to help them move with. We've got phenomenal counselors. We've got great instructional coaches. All of these pieces have systematically been put in place so that our kids can be successful. And I really am legit watching them change by the day and just be more school ready. It's been fantastic.
So I have a question. Ms.
Sure.
Master. So with the focus been on literacy, which I think is very good, how do you make sure that the skills in math, at least don't decline, or, we still keep going, in the right direction in that space?
We have professional development. I think Ms. Brown's going to be talking to you a bit about Grandview U and some resources that we have available. But Ms. McCracken has also, she arranged for an outside expert, Kristen Hilty, to come in and do some observing and coaching. And so we've got supportive elements for math, and our instructional coach can work with our teachers. And during our PLCs, that's a time where we'll bring out content and talk about what's going on in the different content areas, and we can give them the support at that time. Our goal is, as our literacy rates continue to increase, that we begin to spend increasing time on math, just strengthening the teacher's content knowledge, strengthening their instructional capacity. So we're keeping it on the radar. We would never abandon math. We're laser focused on literacy because we know it's the foundation of everything. But we do have elements and resources within the district that we can use with teachers during coaching cycles and PLCs. Math is important.
Really high functioning kids. What about the kids at the high achievement levels?
Glad you asked that, because that was a worry last year that we began as we really started focusing on proficiency and understanding. We had some kids that weren't just on grade level, they were in the stratosphere beyond. We reestablished a school-wide intervention time for Butcher Green at the last 30 minutes of the day. And that's targeted to work on supplementary literacy skills in K1 and 2 in the area of phonics and phonemic awareness, 3, 4, and 5 in vocabulary, which is more, it's not so much about word acquisition, it's more about being able to take words apart and put them back together. It's kind of like the big kid version of phonics and comprehension. But for the kids who have mastered standards, our specialists, we have put together a schedule that changes about every 6 weeks, where if I'm in 3rd grade and I've mastered all of these standards and I don't need this help in comprehension and I don't need this word work, I'm going to the PE teacher for this 6 weeks of enrichment. And then in the next 6 weeks, I'm going to the art teacher and we're going to work through different enrichment activities. What we want to do is, we don't want to pull them out, but we want to give them a chance to do something that's interesting and engaging, because if they've already mastered these skills, then giving them some enrichment time is pretty ideal. Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I've run the gauntlet. Okay.
You
Thank you.
got one
No,
from
you
everyone,
guys-
so.
You guys are wonderful. Thank you for listening, because I know I geek out about this stuff. So thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. And the last one, we have Marcy Simon, principal at On West.
Good evening. My name is Marcy Simon. I'm the very proud principal of Conwest Elementary. This is my 7th year in the building. It's my 26th year in the district. And I want to take you through our school improvement plan. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to do so as well. So to start this process, our BLT identified our problems of practice. Our problems of practice at Conwest is a lack of a culture of student achievement at Conwest. We have low achievement scores in English language arts. And we also need to promote positive school climate in order to decrease the number of office referrals over the year. So a little bit of background on our root cause analysis. So our BLT looked at final diagnostic iReady data over 3 years. And what we found, every year, we continue to decrease the number of students that are on grade level. We also have the number of students that are 2 more grade levels below continues to increase. And we also saw that as the grades increase, the number of students that are 2 or more grade levels below also continues to increase. We looked at our discipline referrals for the 1920 school year, and we had close to 200 office referrals. I will tell you, most of those were for the bus, almost half. And then the other infractions were for disrespectful, disruptive conduct speech, assault, and fighting. And then also during our conversations last year in our BLT, we realized that we don't have a culture of student achievement, and we also don't really know what that means. We had no clear definition of that. So historical data for the end of the year, iReady reading data. As you can see, the red sections, that's the number of students that are 2 or more grade levels below, and it continues to increase from year to year. The next slide is fall. That's our current reality of where we are. So we're at 12% of our students are on grade level, 51 are one grade level below, and then 37 are 2 or more grade levels below. Our discipline data for 3 years, for the 1920 school year, 198 referrals, 80 for the bus. For 2021, which was a strange year, we had 35. It looks like our numbers are great, but we also have to remember it was a crazy year and it's not really accurate data. But again, we have 26 bus referrals. And then for the current school year, the data for first quarter, we have 21 referrals and 13 of those are for the bus. So I mentioned this lack of a culture of student achievement and a lack of a definition. So one of the first things that our BLT did is we needed to define a culture of student achievement. What does that mean at Congress? And in order to be able to move forward with that, we wanted to get some survey data. So we created a survey for our staff and for our students to see where they were on this definition of culture of student achievement. So the survey consisted of 16, 17 questions. And the questions directly mirror each other on the survey. So for example, there's a question on the staff survey. Students in the building have a caring adult in the, have a caring relationship with an adult. And the student survey, I have an adult that I can talk to. Agree, disagree, strongly disagree. So what we found from this survey data is that there's a concern for the social emotional needs of our students. Most of those questions directly align with one another. We also found that the survey questions for the staff that were directly like adult actions, there was a higher agree than for those that were student-centered questions. It was more emphasis on the student. And we did see that there was a large discrepancy in our survey from the staff to the students on the following questions that related to students wanting to learn, students believing that students wanting to learn, achieve at high levels, and not wasting time at school. Our staff had the percentage of agree and strongly agree were far lower than that of the students. So that was the main discrepancy that we saw. So moving into our goals and our action steps. So for SIP goal 1, creating a culture of student achievement, the first thing we needed to do was to define that. And then other thing that we wanted to do, another action step, was the mission and vision of our school. It needed to become the way that we do things in our building. So the evidence of that is we now have a clear definition of a culture of student achievement. It's broken into 4 different pillars, and those pillars consist of social emotional growth, school community efficacy, a sense of urgency, and academic excellence. And then underneath each one of those pillars, there's 4 bullet points that helps define what that looks like at ConWest. We're seeing the mission and vision is visible throughout the building. It's one of the main things that you see before you enter our cafeteria. Our teachers are having conversations about the mission and vision, and we're also planning activities that directly relate to putting that mission and vision in front of our kids, in front of our staff, and in front of our parents, so that everybody knows this is the way that we work and this is the way that we operate. For SIP goal 2, increasing student achievement in ELA, we're doing intentional planning and a student focus of learning in our literacy block. We're also doing student goals. We are doing that with all of our students, K through 5. And also the student goal setting is it is the building goal for all staff's growth plans. So the evidence that we're seeing, observations of student engagement during the literacy block. I walk into any classroom in the building during the literacy block, students are engaged in literacy activities, and it's meaningful activities. It's not dittos, it's not worksheets. It's meaningful activities directly related to literacy. I'm seeing data notebooks and teachers conferring with students about their goals, about their learning, and the students knowing exactly what they're learning and how they're going to get to those learning goals. Also, staff submitted their growth plans, so I know that they've submitted them. So I know that they're doing that as a growth plan. And then goal 3, decrease discipline referrals. We established building-wide behavior expectations throughout the building. We provided professional development and classroom management for our teachers. We're continuing our professional development on conscious discipline in order to meet some of the social emotional needs of our students. And we're also utilizing our behavior interventionists for proactive writing of referrals and trying to get ahead of things before it becomes a problem with our students. So the evidence that we're seeing, I'm seeing students are using those self-regulation skills throughout the day, and teachers are using self-regulation skills also throughout the day. There's consistency amongst the buildings in terms of behavior expectations, and those expectations are listed in the building. What are those common area expectations? And seeing consistency with the students from K through 5. Also, there's a trend currently with our discipline referrals. They're down. We have 8 discipline referrals for the year that just relate to the things that are happening in our building. So the adjustments to the process, after looking at data, doing observations, realized that our upper grades still need to incorporate some phonics work to fill some of those gaps, and that we need to support our teachers with word study. Also, we need to increase the frequency of reviewing our reading records, so we know exactly where our students are when we're conferring with them and we're doing those goal setting. Teachers need to know where those kids are to know if they're actually meeting those goals. Our BLT, we need to look at that survey data, the culture of student achievement, and we need to figure out where we're going to go. We have some mental maps that we're going to need to challenge based on that survey data. And there's also a disconnect. If we say that we have high expectations for kids in a survey, if 80% of our staff feel that way and our assessment data doesn't reflect that, then that's a problem. And how are we going to address that as a BLT? The other thing that we need to look at, we need clear benchmarks. Ms. Nash mentioned 85% of our students proficient by next year. How are we going to get there? We're not going to be blind about it. We need a roadmap. We need benchmarks. And not only do we need benchmarks, but we need to identify those kids that we're going to move. So it's not just enough to know that by December, we need to be at 35%. Teachers need to be able to look at their classroom. They need to look at their current data. And they need to identify how many students they need to move from one level to the next. This student represents 4%. And I'm going to have to move 4 students, for example, to get them to that 33%. So it's being very intentional with looking at that data and putting a face to that data so it becomes real to them. But this has been messy. When I talk about a culture of student achievement, this was our goal last year. And we had spent all year working on this with PLCs and looking at data. And in a conversation one day, we were like, we don't even know what that means. So then we had to step backwards and we had to define it. And then we thought it was going to be a quick thing. It was going to be one meeting, we could define it very easily. And what we realized, everybody had a different perception of what that meant. And it took us a very long time to land on one definition for our BLT. And then how do we get that out there? I told you it was 16 bullet points. So our BLT really needs to create an elevator speech to summarize that so we can articulate it to people. Because I can't sit there and go through 16 bullet points, but I want them to understand what it means, that we have a sense of urgency, that we have caring relationships, that we come to school and we don't waste time. What I have for you this evening, if you have any questions.
Question. So, we're referencing the 85%, that's our home run for now, right? So, how are you the learning content? How are you making it sticky? So, like if we're starting at 25 and our next goal, short is 45. How do you make that material sticky so they can keep at that 45 and then transition upwards towards the 85?
One of the things I was working on today for one of our PLCs was our teachers need, like I said earlier, our teachers need to identify how many kids they currently have at that level and how many do they need to move. And then they need to be able to identify looking at data. these are the kids that I think I can really move, that are in the one grade level below that I can move to on grade level. And what am I gonna do to get there? And then putting those interventions and strategies in place. And our PLCs, that's the work that we're gonna do in our PLCs. What am I gonna do for this one? How am I gonna be able to move them from this step to this step? And then just continuing, we have to continue to work. It's not enough that they get there, we gotta keep them there.
So, well, so you segued me perfectly. So how do you plan to sustain?
By making sure that we know exactly where those kids are, so we're providing them with the appropriate material at the appropriate level. If we have a student who we tested on the BAS and they're at a level B, we can't continue to give them a level B material if they've continued to exceed. So we need to know exactly where we are so that we're making sure that we have the appropriate work for them. You're welcome.
What other questions do we have?
In your goal 3, you talked about teaching self-regulation strategies. Who is teaching those strategies to the kids?
The counselor and I currently, we're doing conscious discipline throughout the building. We have PD sessions on with all of our staff, our paras included. So Mr. Sonderman and I are doing the conscious discipline training with our staff. And actually, we're noticing that our kids are teaching some of the strategies to each other, similar to what they're doing at Belvedere with. We have 5th graders that have been doing conscious discipline with us for several years now. And they know the different breathing techniques and strategies. And they've been helping the younger ones with it too.
I'm just curious about how much buy-in the teachers have to those strategies too.
They do have, you know, I see them doing it. I see our teachers from time to time, and I think they do have buy-in. I think they see it and they believe it. I'm not sure in the beginning they did have buy-in, but after seeing that it works, we started to do it themselves. I think some of the harder ones have seen that we got to give kids, we have to give them space and we need to give them time. And when they are up here heightened, that is not the time to be talking to them. That we have to give them the space and we got to provide them with some tools in order to cool down. So some that I thought would never catch on, listening to them. Okay, breathe with me. You're safe. I got you. I would have never thought, but I think they've seen the success of giving kids those tools.
In your plan, I was looking at the data notebooks. Do you have data notebooks for all the students? I was thinking about Miss Dane and how they scaled it down and started with just the BLT teachers. Are you doing that for everybody, and is that a problem?
We're doing it for everybody K-5, and data notebooks look different from classroom to classroom. And we say a data notebook, but it may be a binder with, it may be a folder with graphs. So it's not necessarily a binder, but everyone is doing it. And the teachers, they are kind of defining what that looks like in their classroom in terms of what is that notebook going to look like. So they're really taking that and they're doing the ownership piece rather than here, this is what you're going to do, but they're taking it and they're personalizing it for them and what's going to work for them and their students. And our specials teachers are also doing goal setting, our behavior interventionists. The students that she works with, she's doing goal setting with her students too, behavior goals. So it's not just necessarily academics, it's tied to specials and behavior as well.
I have a question. So when it comes to behavior or the conscious discipline, how do you keep the parents engaged just to ensure there's consistency across the board with what you guys are trying to administer to the kids when they're going through that, just to make sure when they go home, they have maybe the same problem. Parents understand that the things that you guys are doing, just maintain some type of consistencies and to reiterate that to the children.
Sure. Anytime we have a parent conference, if a student is struggling, I'm always communicating with that parent, but letting them know those strategies that are working. For example, we do social stories with our kids frequently, with our little ones. A social story is basically it's pictures and cards of what the appropriate behavior. So we would make a social story for that parent and we would send it home with that child. If we're talking conscious discipline breathing strategies, we would make copies of those cards, put them on a ring, and we would send those home. And we have parents doing those breathing strategies with the kids too. So things and tools and things that we're doing in our building, we send home with our students. And also including that information in our newsletter that comes out weekly. So they know what we're doing. And so if the kid says, I'm doing the balloon to calm down, a parent knows what that is. So providing that information in our newsletter.
Other questions we have?
Same question for you that I asked the others. Do you feel like you have the tools in your toolbox and resources you need to be able to meet your goals?
Absolutely. I have an amazing team. I do. I have an amazing team with my BLT and with the reading interventionist and with our instructional coach. And I know whatever support I need, if we don't have it in the building, Dr. King, I can text her. Hey, I need help. Hey, I have questions. And I know that those resources are available if I need any support.
I have one.
Yes.
So you mentioned your culture of student achievement is a little lengthy and confusing, to explain.
Yes.
Are the students aware of this goal and how have you explained that to them? I mean, are they excited or motivated by it and trying to achieve things on their own here?
They are not aware of it yet.
Okay.
The only thing that we've done with our students with culture of student achievement is the survey.
Okay.
Because we really wanted to see where they were at. And that's one of the things that we're working towards. Currently, we're working on our mission and vision and getting that in front of our kids. We have a literacy night coming up and all of our students have a writing prompt that is going to be related to the mission and vision. So that's how we're tying that in. So once we have that mission and vision and that's in front of our kids and our parents, then the next step is doing that culture of student achievement. But we also need to get it in front of our staff first because they still are messy about the definition of a culture of student achievement.
I have just answered this question, I think, but the other two schools both talked about parent involvement, lack of parent involvement. I assume that is an issue for you as well, just not what you had as one of your top three.
It definitely is not where we want to be. It is something that we work on every year. It is a priority, but it's not part of our SIP plan. We have events to include our parents in terms of training and for like literacy night and for a math night where we bring our families in. We also do PTA events. We did do some data collection a couple of years ago and we realized that our parents don't necessarily want to come on a Thursday night. They would rather come on a Friday night. So we've actually changed our event nights to Fridays so that more families can come and attend. And we listened to what they said in those surveys. They wanted movie nights. They wanted events to interact and socialize. And actually, it was really exciting. Last month, we had our first event with parents. And in 2 years, where we were outside, I think we had close to 200 people on our blacktop for a glow run. And parents just were so excited to be with other parents and have their kids interact with other kids. And just running and playing outside and having a DJ. So we do struggle with parent involvement, but we're trying to plan activities to bring our families in at different times and different activities that they'll want to attend.
You ran off and answered really well, but where I was going was.
That's right.
That's okay. Is there any thought about bringing them in more on that definition of the culture of student achievement? Because that's where they could really.
Absolutely.
We want them to buy in so much to be part of that could be a way to.
No, definitely that is something there, because it's not just limited to our building. It's not just limited to the kids and to the students and the staff. It does overflow into our families, because one of the bullet points, I come to school on time and prepared. So I think parents need to know that's the expectation of a building a culture of student achievement. And my kid needs to be there on time and they need to be prepared, whether they have their supplies, they have their uniform, they have their homework done. But definitely that's one of the other things that we need to do is get that in front of them. But it's the same with our mission and vision. That hadn't been in front of them either. And that won't be until this coming, within the next month. But it definitely is something that needs to be reiterated at every event that we do, so that parents, it becomes the way, they see that this is the way that we do things at Con West.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
School, one question, just curious on the discrepancy between students' responses on the survey versus the teachers. Did you guys, talk about any of the reasons or why you thought it might be so different?
We just got into it, actually this past week, and time ran out because we had to get up and get our kids, but it's one definitely we want to look at and, you know, definitely, when we talked about it as a BLT, so the questions on the survey, it wasn't just how do I feel about this? How do you think the staff feels? And I think some people had like maybe one staff member in mind when they were answering this question that, well, maybe that one staff member doesn't feel the same way, so I may not be an agree or a strongly agree, I might be more neutral. But that's definitely something that we need to explore, and you know, we're probably gonna need to challenge the mental maps with, you know, for survey results that say my kids want to achieve at high levels. That's kind of disturbing that it's a rather low number that staff feel that way. When you look at that and it's 50% of your staff, you know, the survey results say that kids want to achieve at high level, that's concerning. And if that is a problem, what are we going to do to fix that? Because what does that say about how we believe about our kids and how we think about them and how we treat them? If that's what we're saying in a survey. But I do think when we did the survey, it was more of a generalization of staff. It wasn't just, this is how I feel. And maybe that's where we go with it. Do one that's specifically to, this is how I feel, so that we can see if there is a difference. Me too.
So my question for you, I've had the pleasure of seeing multiple SIPs from you over the years. And one thing that's been a common theme that I've seen is you always have a goal around office referrals on your SIP.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of trying to hope you can help us to understand, your goal is to decrease them by 50%. How do you feel that office referrals decreasing is going to translate into significant gains around academics? Why are you choosing that as a goal every year?
Because when I see that number of discipline referrals being that high, in my head, I think of how long has that kid been out of class? And if they were in trouble, how long were they out of class before they were able to return? So for me, that's a loss of learning. And if I can have that student stay in class longer, I'm going to be able to increase student achievement.
Have you thought about how 50% reduction of office referrals would then correlate to a percentage of increase in student achievement?
I'm sorry, say that again.
So if you have a 50% reduction in office referrals, I assume you got that number somehow looking at data. How do you think that's going to then correspond to an increase in student achievement? How much percentage do you think that might increase student achievement?
That's an interesting question. I would hope that it would increase by 50%. If I'm going to say it's 50% increase in, that I want to decrease it by 50%, I'm hoping to increase their time in task, their time in class, and translate into 50% increase in achievement. Because if I have that many kids out of class for that long, and if I can keep them in class, then hopefully that translates into higher assessments, higher learning and lower learning loss.
Sure. Okay. Thank you.
That's an interesting question.
I'm a numbers person. You should know that by now.
I do.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you. Thank you all very much.
Yes, thank you.
It's gonna run away.
All right. Anything final on that? Are we good on that?
You know, they're informational. I hope you can see just the difference in terms of this progression. You know, there's certainly a lot of new faces in front of me in terms of board, but when I became superintendent 6 years ago, this process is significantly different in just 6 years and has evolved a lot over the last even 3 years. So as we continue to push forward with how we present these, but giving It's really pushing and challenging our leaders to look at data differently and how do they walk their staff through this and making sure that they understand how are we looking at this and how are we tracking these goals and going through. We still have a long way to go in order to present that and to do it in a way that doesn't come across as you are a bad teacher or you're not doing this. It's just our students aren't here. So what can we do differently? How do we make sure that we move this forward? So I'm really excited about how this process has evolved. Like I said, we have a long way to go, but when I just look backwards, part of my goal and continually talking about celebrating successes that we've had, this is still a success in how this process is moving forward, because I do think that it will continue to lead to improvements. And I appreciate Dr. King's work and CNI team's work, because they've done a ton of work leading up to this point so that you can have leaders in front of you talking to that depth and level of what's happening in the building and what they're tracking.
You just took the words out of my mouth, and I was gonna say thank you for all your hard work on this process. All right, well, that is informational, so we will continue on to workforce excellence then.
We've got one more presentation for you this evening, and so Dr. King's going to take over again.
All right, today I'm going to have my Director of Professional Development and Extended School Year, Ms. Emily Brown. She's going to present to us on the professional development plan. Emily Brown is not new to Grandview. She's new to her position here, but those of you that do not know, Emily Brown was formerly one of the autistic teachers in this district for years, and then became the process coordinator in this district for years as well. And then she's now works for my department. And we took her on this year, and she's now in charge of all professional development and then also the extended school year. And as we start moving into our virtual school as well, that we're moving into, she'll be taking that part over as well. So, Ms. Brown.
Hello, it's nice to see you all, and I'm also a parent of Grandview and a community member, so I just wanted to share that. So today we are going to talk about professional development. We're going to talk a little bit about new teacher orientation and how that went today. Dr. Rodriguez, if you could go ahead and change my slide there. So professional development, our mission with professional development is to provide high quality job embedded adult learning opportunities in order for them to enable students to reach high levels of learning that meet state and national standards. So what does that mean for us? Our goals. We are here to promote effective teaching practices through that focused job embedded ongoing professional development. Feedback from the school year of 2020 revealed that 94% of our staff indicated that they felt that they were given choice in their personal growth. 87% indicated that professional development choices were relevant and beneficial to them. And I would like to draw your attention to the last bullet there, where 97% of staff agreed that professional development modules and online learning were effective and helped them grow. So what does that mean for the 2021 school year? Well, our professional development team has committed to continuing to build our online resource library. We are aiming to provide a variety of personal learning options, as well as create online instructor-led learning communities. Our modules will be designed to support personal growth, but on top of that, we will be supporting building growth and district school improvement plans. In the end, however, the most important thing is that educators are given the freedom to learn on their own time, and most importantly, at their own pace. So for your new teacher orientation update, I have good news. Our yellow bus tour is back this year, live and in person. I know, it did that to me too. Okay, a fun fact for this year. This year, we onboarded 60 new teachers, 23 new classified staff for a total of 83 brand new employees to the Grandview School District. This is our largest onboarding to date. So what did we do over our 3 days? On day one, we provided 2 in-person sessions that provided new staff with the most pertinent information. From there, on day 2, they stayed home and they did their virtual onboarding modules. And then we brought them back on campus for day 3, where they participated in their yellow bus tour and school competition. And from there, they were dismissed to meet with their principals for lunch, receive their building tours, and get acclimated to their classrooms. This is a quick clip of our new, our yellow bus tour competition. I think you'll enjoy. So as you can see, Grandview Middle School, they go big or stay home.
Kind of hard to compete with pool party.
I know. But they did a good job. All of the other schools did a fantastic job and the competition was fierce. So how did we do? So I surveyed our new teachers and got some feedback from them this year. And I found out that 93% of our new teachers benefited from that virtual learn from home day, that onboarding process that we did that way. Some other numbers that really stood out to me were 93% felt that they were welcomed and made to feel comfortable in their new school. And then I really enjoyed the last 2 numbers there, where 96% of our new staff felt welcomed and supported by administrators, as well as they believed that the information that was provided to them met their most immediate needs to help them begin the school year successfully. So at this point, what questions can I answer for you?
I just had a question on your PD evaluation survey. Your scoring was pretty high. How many surveys were sent out versus how many were received back?
Those surveys were conducted last June before I was in this position, so that number was not noted.
We get about less than 50%.
I'm sorry.
We get about less than 50%.
Right, so that, yeah, that's where I was going with that. The small numbers can sway your data, right?
Sure,
So I was just curious.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Everybody's given the opportunity and we get about 50%.
Questions to ask.
First slide you have with, first slide you have with percentages.
Mhm.
When you were talking about, you said 94% said they were given choice in personal growth.
Correct. That
Personal growth?
in that we are creating our online resource libraries, and we have our professional development site. It's called Grandview U, so that they were given different options to promote their own growth and learning, so that we don't have teachers sitting in a professional development that doesn't apply to them.
Personalized.
Personalized, yes.
I get confused.
Well, but I would also say, in the
Some of
importance
those.
of personal growth too, there are other modules in there in terms of their own health and wellness and some other elements as well. So
Isn't there like cooking or something in there?
there is a
too?
variety of different things that it's their personal and professional in terms of that. But it is personalized, but it also would include that.
Okay, thank you. So the only question I have, would you do anything differently?
From new teacher orientation? That's a great question. We're actually looking at doing a June jumpstart next year, perhaps. I mean, that's kind of on the table right now to help our new hires that are actually hired in April, May, because hiring starts in February, and get them acclimated sooner so they have a little bit more time to prepare. So that's the one thing that, as I look into the future, and then as far as the rollout of that 3 days, I think that giving them that time to work in their classrooms settles anxiety. And that is a huge piece of starting any new job, learning names, learning systems, navigating buildings, knowing who to talk to, and giving them that piece. So, okay. Well, thank you
so
for
much.
all you do for us. And I will bid you good night.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you.
Thank
Emily.
you. Thank you. Thank you.
Right. So this one we do need to approve.
Yes, ma'am.
So we will need a motion for this one.
We approved the professional development plan for 2021-22.
Properly moved and second to approve the professional development plan for 21-22. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimous. We'll continue on resource stewardship.
Yes, so we do have, we've been talking about this for a little while in terms of kind of leading up to this point. As you know, in the spring, in April, we did go to our patrons and ask for not only a levy increase, but also a $45 million bond. Both of those did pass. And as we've gone through the summer and completed some of the projects that we had that were with the last bond funds, we're kind of at that point where we really want to move forward. We have a lot of projects that we need to get done over the next several years, and we need the authorization to do it. So, Dr. Carlson, you want to take us through just a little bit of that?
Yes, really, we have three items for you attached with that. Resolution, a notice of sale, and a summary notice of bond sale to proceed with the sale. So those are your three supporting documents. Really, the financial impact of selling $10 million of bonds, I find interesting is at that 4% interest rate, the overall impact could be a million to 1.2 million more than the 10 million. So that's a real bang for our buck. So we just strongly recommend that you approve the resolution, the notice of sale, and summary notice of the bond sale as presented.
Any questions about that? There's always so many for the financial pieces of it.
And thank you for that.
Next
I'll say
time, I'm
this.
gonna have to
You
report.
love questions.
We-
Come on.
We do have a lot of confidence. Obviously, LJ Hart Company have come and done presentations to us in the past. I have no doubt that there will be presentations that all of you will be able to see as well, but we have a lot of confidence in that organization and things that they've done. Like I said, most of the bonds that we've done over the last several years have yielded significantly more than the sales, as Dr. Pallison has mentioned. So we feel like we're in good hands in that regard.
And I'll tag on that. Larry was at Beard, Larry Hart, and he had received some award today, so he wasn't able to make the report. I'd say just a few minutes.
Man, I wish that he'd have been here. I don't know why we're not more important than getting an award. All right, if there are no questions, then we do need a motion on this one, please.
I move to approve the resolution, notice of sale, and summary notice of bond sale as presented to proceed with the sale of $10 million in general obligation.
Properly moved and second to approve the resolution notice of sale and summary notice of bond sales presented to proceed with the sale of $10 million in general obligation bonds. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. Passes unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Family and community involvement.
No items submitted this evening, Madam President.
Nothing there. All right, we'll continue right along for governance then.
So we have two items this evening, and I'll ask Ms. Myers to weigh in here in a moment. Certainly this first one, alternative policy adoption. We voted and approved this alternative policy adoption a few board meetings ago. This is an opportunity for us to implement some policies, as sometimes the legal process moves a little faster than the process to get a board policy up to date. So MSBA has forwarded a couple of these items. These are two items that you may have already heard about and we discussed, and that you've kind of seen in the news in that particular regard. So Ms. Myers, you want to take us through just those real quick?
Sure, and I just would add on the alternative adoption process, which I know might be confusing to some because we don't use it that often, but I'm just using the language from policy BF. Districts that use an organization such as MSBA to manage their policies are allowed to do that. It simply means instead of on first and second reading, consecutive meetings, you can adopt them at once, immediately. So our district chooses to continue to do first and second reading, except at times when there is either a time issue or it's such a minor change that it might not require. And the purpose for two readings at the time frame in between is not only for you to think about it more, but for anybody else to have opportunity, patrons, parents, anybody else to have opportunity for input. So these two are about school elections and campaigns. You may be aware that the filing for board elections has changed and shortened. And so it's effective beginning December 7th. So that's the purpose of going ahead and doing it now. And although the other one is on political campaigns, is not really a time sensitive thing, but it kind of it seems to fit in the definition of what we just said. I'm happy to answer any questions related to either of those.
Thank you. Any questions on that? All right, if there are none, then we do need a motion on this one as well.
Make a motion to approve the revisions to policy GBB and DCB as presented using an alternative method of adoption outlined by policy BR.
I second.
Thank you. Properly moved and seconded to approve the revisions to policy BBB and DCB as presented using alternative method of adoption outlined in policy BF. All in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. Passes unanimous.
The next item is, again, a policy on first read. This is our normal process, as Ms. Myers just discussed. It does talk about audio and visual recording, and so policy KKB. There have been some updates to this as the law has changed a little bit as well. So I don't know if you want to mention just a little bit about this, Dr. Maya. I know you've dealt with this a lot already.
Yes, this really is specifically for students that are receiving special education services and are on IEPs. We knew this was coming, so we have a process. There's a process that parents request for them to want to be recording that session 24 hours in advance. So there's some forms and a process. That's kind of the short of this here. If you disrupt it in any way, we could ask that the recording be stopped, but overall, we're good process and policy there.
Anything else to add, Ms. Myers? No. Happy to answer any questions. Like I said, this is on first read, so we'll bring this back again for second reading.
How much has this been an issue at all? If you have one?
Currently, it's not an issue.
Questions? All right, if there are none, then we will entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the revision to policy KKB on first reading as presented.
I second.
Thank you. Properly moved and seconded to approve revisions on policy KKB on first reading as presented. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimous. All right. Our favorite part of the night, recapitulation of funds.
Thank you.
You're
Slice
on.
it up
We're on the
tonight.
backside now. So
Slice it
we
up.
do the heavy lifting on the front end, and then we get to leave it to Dr. Powelson on the backside. So,
To
Dr.
recap,
Powelson.
to recap the 75 pages I presented for you tonight, which is truly 75 pages, I just counted. I put together this executive summary for you that you can easily read that says, our revenues for the operating funds 1 through 6 are up approximately 1.89 million compared to this time last year. Again, you sound like a broken record, but it's the operating levy that our community so graciously passed so we can have those funds. And then on the expenditure side, we are up approximately 622,000 from this time last year. That's mainly due to increase in our payroll that we're able to give our employees gladly, and also projects and things that we've needed to get done, some purchase services and whatnot. So we're doing great on funds. Overall, we're doing great on funds, as you can tell from our revenues compared to our expenditures for this month. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
It's a light read, 75
He needs to go through each page.
This is the bedtime read. So for the new board members, you're expected, when this comes out on Friday, bedtime reading
Yeah.
for the next week. Just kidding. It's a lot of information.
Yeah. So
All right, any questions? All right. This one is just informational. So we will move on to salient dates. Dr. Rodriguez.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have the MSBA conference, so we do have a closed meeting, obviously, on October 27th, but I definitely want to call your attention to the MSBA conference. As I mentioned, I think last month, as they used to everything was around the lake, now they're going back and forth. And so this year it is in the Kansas City Metro, so there'll be several events going on. We try to send those out to you as you see them, but certainly the conference itself. And then Dr. Amaya and I will be actually presenting on Saturday a little bit about what's going on in our district and the social emotional supports and the things that we've put in place over the course of the last several years with our community partnerships. But there's a lot of really good things at that event, especially obviously centered around your leadership and collaboration with other board members across the state.
It's always a good time. So a lot of information, a lot of ideas will come back. So take notes, and we've got board reports after that. So expect some good stuff there for those that are attending. So
That's all I got.
all right, thank you.
It's all yours.
I have the floor. All right, report of board members. For those that are new, this is an opportunity for us to share things that are going on, events that we've attended, anything that we want to share with the rest of the board. So we actually did this year put into place a schedule where each board member has a month that they are responsible for reporting on. Does not mean that you can't share about things outside of that month, but the idea is that sometime during that, up to your month, you would be attending events at various things across the district, that you would be maybe visiting schools and doing tours with the principals, anything at all that will allow you to get more visibility within the district and allow you to share that information back with us. So I'll make sure that we let you guys know what your months will be, but just keep an eye on the calendar. And if there's something that interests you, definitely recommend, for those that are parents, not to just go to the ones where your own kids go to school, try to branch out and go visit other things. So some of the things that were mentioned tonight versus science nights, maybe a glow run, some of those things, just go say hi, show your face, and be part of the community. Go crazy. Go crazy. That's what we do, go crazy. So that being said, we don't actually have anybody scheduled for tonight because that person is no longer on the board. So tonight it's just open free for all. Anybody have anything they want to share?
What? Really?
You always have something.
Okay. The only thing I have is I understand the trivia night is being postponed until another time. We were supposed to have it in November. but they're pushing it to
January.
And then I asked who's responsible for planning it, and of course my name came up. So it's a good thing we're not doing it in November.
You didn't pass it off on somebody else? That seems kind of ironic.
Do you want to volunteer?
That's what I heard. I feel like that's what I heard.
I believe I
You
passed
made-
the
you
last
made-
thing
you
off
made
on
her-
you.
You made her get up early too for
I
that.
know.
She owes you.
And did you see that my picture was posted on?
Yes.
And I had no makeup on. I was like, seriously, I spent so much time
Now,
trying.
you're
to
supposed to
look
say,
like
no, I didn't
this."
notice any of that.
Yeah, I saw that.
Everybody noticed.
I thought you looked fine.
I was like, really? I spent so much time there. It's gone.
And I'm excited that Grandview 8 and 10 are gonna start their process soon. So,
Well, we often actually bring that up in my report, so when it's come time for me, then I'll share information. So, anybody else have anything to share tonight?
Monica, if I could be rude just a minute, but this is Tom Crafton back here. He works on our district maintenance. I just wanted you folks to know who he was.
Oh, thank you so much.
Really good.
Thank you for
He's
coming to
working
visit with
A
us.
couple months. He's kind of taken over the Johnson Controls portion, working
Okay.
with them closely and trying to make things work between the schools and us and Johnson Controls. So
Perfect.
wanted to share that. Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all.
So for me, the only thing that I have, I already mentioned about the board member reports, but one of the pieces that we commit to on the board is being part of some committees. And we have openings for a couple of committees now because we had open positions. So I would ask Ms. Myers, could you put together what's open and maybe send that out to all of us? If the two new folks could potentially take a look at that list and see if there's anything that you were interested in being a part of. Probably the biggest thing that we have a gap on right now is a committee called Grandview 10. And part of the reason that is a gap is because that is regular meetings and they're pretty much all day meetings. So it's sometimes hard to find something. So Ms. Foy has agreed to be on both of the committees, Grandview 8 and Grandview 10. Grandview 8 is focused around the classified staff and salaries and climate and that, right, kind of thought. Grandview 10 is the certified staff, so that's the teaching staff that are certified teachers. And that is a process that we use every year. We can go more into that. But again, Grandview 10, we have a gap. We need 2 board members. Ms. Foy's agreed to be one. Damon has agreed to be an alternate if he can, but if you guys could kind of think about, is that something you could potentially commit to? Was that 5 or 6 times a year?
probably more.
It'll be more than that, but we'll include that in the information.
Okay, thank you. So again, it's a commitment, but it's a really, really, really good way to learn about the district and learn the processes that go into what we get presented for salary recommendations at the end of the year. So that's the process that it goes through to get those. So when she sends that out, think about that. If there's any of the committees that you can be on, most of the committees meet rarely, once a year, maybe twice a year for an hour. So, that information can potentially be included as well, if you don't mind. So
It's a good group, a good time, and there's peanut posters.
courtesy of.
That's important for us.
Oh.
They're right
This is
now.
important.
And they're amazing.
So best way to a person's heart is through their stomach. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
All right. Anything? Okay, I'm sorry. Anything else from anybody? 'Cause that's all I have for tonight. And again, just welcome and thank you guys for your commitment to joining us. So, all right. Well, if there is nothing else, then there is only one more thing left to do.
I move we adjourn.
Second. Woo. Quickly moved and seconded to adjourn. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. Thank you.